What's going on, everybody? It's Tron Ninja here, coming at you with another video covering the Weaponized Conada and if you should buy it. Quickly before we get into the video though, could you guys give me a subscribe, like, hit the bell, and all that other stuff? That would be great. But anyways, let's get into this video and see if this vehicle's worth buying. First, we're going to be covering the price of the Weaponized Conada. You need a hanger to be able to purchase this, and it's $3.385 million, so it's a very expensive chopper. Now we're going to cover the weapons and the armor. First off, with the armor, with the homing missile and the RPG, this chopper only takes one rocket, one railgun shot, and 5 explosive sniper rounds. Now for the weapons, the missile lock-on range is 300 meters. And the missile travel distance is 550 meters. And the furthest range the machine guns can fire is 315 meters. In this test, we test the machine gun's damage against light armored vehicles. And in this other test, we test the damage or the shots required to kill another player. And this is what the machine gun would look like if you were shooting it at a player normally. And a quick demonstration of the missiles against ground targets. This chopper also contains a special ability with its co-pilot missile system, like the Savage and the Buzzard would have, except this one you can shoot the pilot-controlled missiles along with the co-pilot, making it a very effective chopper. And this is how many missiles it would be required to destroy a Night Shark. Keep in mind that the co-pilot missiles do RPG damage, so it would be a lot faster, but they travel a lot slower. Now we're going to do a general overview of what we've all went over before we get into the combat live tests. First off, the machine gun's range is 315 meters. It's slightly further than the Buzzards, so it's a little bit good in that regard, but as you can see with the machine gun's damage on players, it requires 8 shots, or 19.3 seconds. This is significantly slower from the Buzzard. The Buzzard would kill a lot faster, not to mention it has like twice the fire rate. The missile's lock-on range is 300 meters, that's standard. Same with the missile's travel range, that's standard as well. But the biggest disappointing part is the armor. You're buying a $3.3 million helicopter for 1 RPG or 1 homing missile damage. That's all it takes. And then the railgun is even worse, it only takes 1 railgun. So all that armor that you're buying for in the custom shop, all it does is just add a few more explosive snipers that you can take. That's kind of pathetic, in all honesty. And it gets worse. This has no countermeasures. Yeah, an upgradable chopper in 2023 does not have countermeasures, so you have to use dodging techniques, or when they decide to fix the drive-by weapons mechanic in this chopper, your co-pilot will be able to use the flare guns, but I don't see them doing that ever. One thing it is good at is better at altitude gain. You'll see that in the dogfight clips especially. It's very good at that. So getting on top of a chopper in a dogfight and using its altitude gain, that's a lot better than a Sparrow, for example, will give it the edge in the dogfight. Its co-pilot missile camera can be used. And the other thing is that the co-pilot missile can also be used while the pilot is using the missiles. This is a benefit because now you can turn this thing pretty much into like a very specific air-to-ground chopper based off the fact that it can shoot missiles in 2 different directions, so that's a pretty good feature. And in general, I know that this is not like a buzzard replacement, so I'm just going to say that right now. It's not that, and these next few clips will prove that. But just generally know that this is all that the chopper offers. So if this is not worth it for you, or if it is, I'll let you be the judge of that. But the armor is the biggest problem, and the fact that it doesn't have countermeasures. In this test, we're going to be testing the Conada against the Night Shark while Green tries to get to his import-export garage. This is the same test from the Raiju and the Laser video. Basically, my friend is going to try and outrun me and try to get to the import-export garage before I inevitably destroy him. Can he actually get there before his Night Shark blows up? Now we're going to be doing the first air-to-ground test versus the homing missile against the Weaponized Conada. Generally speaking, the helicopter actually did a very good job with its new handling upgrades and the fact that it gains altitude pretty quickly compared to the Buzzard. It actually can dodge missiles fairly easily, so you don't have to worry about this thing being an absolute slog in the absolute air like the fucking Savage or anything. It's very fast, it's just like the Sparrow and the Buzzard, very responsive, and very good for dodging missiles in general. Here in this one quick clip and then the next clip, this is going to be the railgun versus the Conada. As you can see, this first clip didn't really last that long. So against the railgun anyway, it's like 50-50 split on sometimes. If the railgun user is actually good, they'll be able to shoot you down pretty much a large portion of the time. But if they're any kind of average player in this game that doesn't know how to actually aim guns, or physically can't aim at you like I'm doing here in the gameplay, the railgun's not really that much of a threat because it still has that problem where the projectile of the railgun can go through windows of choppers, meaning that the shot can potentially go through the Conada. And here in the dogfighting scene against the Buzzard, it doesn't really actually shine that really much. This is actually where the negatives actually really start to shine through. The machine gun compared to the Buzzard's machine gun is basically non-existent. The Buzzard's machine gun is just shredding my Conada's armor. Meanwhile, mine, because of its slow fire rate and very low damage, it's barely hitting him because of that same window problem, and the fact that it just sucks at these longer distances for dogfights compared to the Buzzard's machine gun in the first place. With all that being said, the only thing that the Conada has over the Buzzard is its altitude gain and being able to use missiles like a crank shot, like shooting upward and having the missile come down on it on the rotors. That's literally the only way the Conada can win. It has to use missiles. So, is it worth it for dogfighting? Against a Buzzard, absolutely not. The Buzzard's gonna absolutely own you if you try to use the machine gun in a Buzzard. And here the Weaponized Conada goes against the Sparrow. As you can see, the Sparrow will not be able to actually compete with the Weaponized Conada because it does not have a machine gun. It can only either have a machine gun or missiles. It cannot have both. And because of the altitude gain thing that I mentioned earlier, the only way that the Sparrow can take out the Conada is if it gets on top of it. Same with this Weaponized Conada getting on top of the Buzzard and crank-shotting its missile into the rotor by shooting it upward and having the missile come down on it. That's really the only way, but because the Conada raises altitude way faster than the Sparrow, it just doesn't have a chance, and because it doesn't have a machine gun, the only way it can kill the Conada is if it makes a direct contact hit with its missiles. Other than that, it's kind of just a sitting duck. And here the Weaponized Conada goes against the Annihilator generally, because I was genuinely curious if the Conada can actually somewhat compete against the Annihilator. Absolutely not. The Annihilator has way too much firepower at its disposal, and because it's a big chopper, it's very steady and can aim its machine gun way more than the Weaponized Conada because of the turbulence. Because of that fact, the Annihilator destroys the Weaponized Conada, and because of its low hitbox, there's no missiles hitting this thing, so yeah, not really looking good in the dogfighting scene for this chopper. Now on the general overview of this chopper and my thoughts, and the conclusion on whether or not you should buy this chopper. Generally speaking, this chopper has not really that much going for it, especially because the Buzzard is like $1.25 million. This is 3.38, so I don't really see any reason you would buy this other than the fact that you just like using helicopters in general, or using the helicopter's machine guns against players on foot, or anything that involves with helicopter piloting in general. I don't see any reason for anyone to buy this chopper for grinding purposes or anything like that. And the reason I didn't cover its performance as well, like its actual speed, is because it's lackluster. It's kind of middle of the pack. It's not faster than the Hunter or anything, and it's actually even slower than its unweaponized counterpart, which is kind of laughable in itself. And my biggest problems with this chopper is, number one, its piss-ass armor. It doesn't have any armor. The fact that this thing takes one railgun shot is absolutely atrocious. That should not be a thing. I'm okay with missiles, but railguns, like, really? Only one railgun? That's pathetic. And the other thing, it has no countermeasures, so you can't really, like, turn chaff on to disable fucking lock-on or anything when you're dealing with lots of fucking enemies. So there's really no way of taking on multiple fucking targets, even with the co-pilot system, for very long, because you don't have countermeasures to help you. And I would say that you could just use the fucking co-pilot's drive-by flare gun, but that system currently in the current game does not work. So you can't use the flare gun in this chopper for some reason. And while I do like the co-pilot system in this chopper, I cannot justify this chopper to anyone to buy for the sole purpose of just using this for air to ground. Or even businesses in general, like grinding of any kind, because number one, the Buzzard's like twice as cheap. Number two, you can spawn it through the CEO menu. And number three, it's a Pegasus vehicle and a personal aircraft from the hangar, so you can spawn it 3 different ways. And on top of that, in order to get to this chopper, you have to go to an aircraft-specific point because it's a personal aircraft only, meaning you probably have to drive another aircraft or a vehicle to get this vehicle. Why would you drive a Sparrow over to your shittier Conada just because of the fact that you wanted to fly it? It just doesn't make any sense. So, generally speaking, the Conada is not worth the $3.3 million unless if you're a pilot enthusiast that wants to buy a new helicopter because he's bored of the current ones. But, you know, it's not that good in general. But I will say one thing, the machine gun is not as weak as people were making it out to be. This thing is a lot stronger than the Annihilator Stealth, I will say that. But does that make this thing good? Not really. So, only buy this thing if you're super fucking rich, or if you're just bored of the current meta of choppers, and you need something new to fly. Other than that, I can't recommend this for grinding of any kind, because it's simply too expensive. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for the Weaponized Conada review. What did you guys think? Leave me a like, hit the bell icon, subscribe, and all that other stuff. That would be great. Also, remember to check out my Raiju and Laser Cannon videos so you don't miss out on those videos, and much, much more coming out in the future. But anyways, I'm Tron Ninja. This was my Weaponized Conada review, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.